and that this allowed for a good way of cooperating with one another. That's in a real communal sense that we did a lot of that. We shared crops, we shared food, we shared everything in that way, and that was a very important understanding we had, and exercise in having that kind of closeness. And because of that, this allowed us to work together. This allowed somebody like Omanlike and Dan Simplicio to work together. Omanlike's are the frogs that he had actually carved into shape, and my father did the silver work. Did the silver work in this, and so it was, you know, one of the earliest collaboration that existed back then. My father went on to collaborate other works with people like Lambert Homer, Leo Poblano, and a number of other different people, including his brothers as well too, and a number of whole people that he collaborated, worked with, or he taught how to do silversmithing. And he didn't actually teach the design elements itself. He taught more the techniques to other people, a number of other people too. And so you see that style within different families in Zuni as well too, that you can actually trace back who the original creators were, and how they related to Dan Simplicio at that time. But again, it had a lot to do with that close association of our families and our relationships at that time that allowed it. And I think it's very reflective of that today, that you see very or no little collaboration at all between the people themselves, now that they live in a predominantly more nuclear families. It's become, designs have become much more privatized, and they actually looked at as an infringement upon one person's design over another, where there's no longer a secured feeling of sharing and working together and sharing probably the money or anything that was ever associated, as during the era of my father, who worked with a number of people to do that. And to me, the cooperation is best illustrated. I think some of the best artistic talent that ever came was because of that. And that was the beginning, and we should really look back and reflect upon that as a real positive way of cooperating with one another and sharing with one another, as far as talent is concerned as well too, because I think together they clearly demonstrated the best use of that. That's what I see in both of these two pieces. I chose these two pieces here because of the design elements that are in here that actually were derived from prehistoric pottery making. These are pottery designs that he had actually incorporated into his silver work, and the one is from, this bolo is from the 1950s to the 1960s era, when bolos became really fashionable at that time, and he made his this creation. These were probably one of the, this one is the earliest forms of his types of inlay designs that he was doing in his jewelry, and he continued that inlay designs all the way up into the 1960s as well too, in addition to the several different styles that he did. This bolo is in particularly probably distinctive in that sense that this is actually from another element as well. This type of leaf design you would also see in a number of different Navajo pieces as well too, and probably stands to reason of why that is. In the 1960s, Dan Simplicio had worked for John Kennedy in Gallup, and John Kennedy also employed other Native people in his shops, and in particular he had about 2 other Navajo silversmiths who worked along with Dan Simplicio at that time. And whether this was actually derived from him or if he derived this from the other Navajo artists, that might be the case here, but that's always a shared design with Navajo jewelry jewelry making. But this element here, the leaf stamp itself, is another one that he had been working on earlier as well too. So this is of that era, but it's interesting to see the use of pottery designed in a inlaid fashion on this one as well too. I selected these pieces to illustrate the different types of uses for such massive pieces of jewelry like this. Oftentimes, the bigger the piece are, the more it would be used for ceremonial purposes. When we are dancing in our traditional dances, a lot of the understanding that goes into these dances is the use of large and colorful items as the reason why a number of these pieces were made, in particularly for that reason, is to show that, because part of our elements in our ritual beliefs is to illustrate color as a way of, as part of our ceremony, because it stimulates our the sight as well. Anything that stimulates our other senses is also used in that understanding of ceremony. The more senses you can stimulate within a dance, the successful that ceremony is. That's how it's determined. And in order to do so, we allow bigger pieces like this to be used in that sense, and that really demonstrates the beauty and the color of ceremonial use in items, and which is why they're of this scale. Another one would be a necklace worn in this sense as well too. In women dancing or men dancing, they would wear pieces like this that are relatively large and but really accentuate the color and the beauty of pieces like this one as well too, that will be used for that purpose. Again, the size is a real determinant in how it would be used in a ceremony. Necklaces like this as well too. The large scale of this necklace itself tells that as well too, that this would be definitely used as a ceremonial item as well too. But actually this one too is small enough to be used during ceremonies by the audience themselves too. So women would actually wear something like this to show the beauty of their work, or as a gift that may have come from other Zuni person to do so. But in essence, large pieces like these are used for ceremonial purposes to bring out that beauty and the size of the pieces, to illustrate that success of that ceremony and the stimulation of our sight of beauty.